Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Warfare Tournament. We had a couple weeks off, a few personal situations going on with our cast and crew, and we are back. Hopefully, you enjoyed the bonus episode that happened during WrestleMania Saturday with myself, Matthew Terry, and Kieran Reed. And we are back. We are going to shelve all the WrestleMania stuff we didn't get to our Mr. WrestleMania, but we will get to that probably around next year when WrestleMania comes around because there's so many more events to come as it goes along. But this week we thought we'd throw in a special one, sort of based on what we did a couple months ago with the greatest individual in the Hogan era to never win the WWF championship. We're going with tag teams who never won the big one. They might have won tag team titles in other territories, but really never won the WCW tag team titles, and definitely did not win the WWE or WWF tag team titles. And these are guys in the 90s, so it's actually the WWF tag team titles. So we're going to run down 16 teams. They are going to consist of other territories like ECW, WCW, WWF, and even Smoky Mountain. So we got those to go, but we can't do that until we bring in our panelists. And welcoming back Steven, and he's back in Toronto, I see. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a trying couple weeks. It's but we're back, so that's a good thing. Try to get back life into normal.
Well, around here, family comes first, and so these things are just what we do for fun, and we'll get back to having fun tonight. But the 2 weeks that was needed for just restabilizing and resetting is definitely needed in being with family. So, welcome back, and we're going to bring in Jonesy, who is in Niagara Falls in mid move.
I am moving again after 3 months.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you end up renting a shithole.
Yes, it's quite the shithole. It's a nice layout, but when the floors are literally like everything, you can't put anything on a flat surface without it rolling off here.
Sounds fun.
Oh yeah, it's lots of fun.
So, guys, as I said, we're going to look at 90s tag teams. They never won the big one, whether it was in WCW, because I'm looking at this list as well. There's no WCW tag team titles, I believe, in this list, and definitely our reason for it is there's no WWF ones. Going to play our video. Steven's going to run down things, and then we'll get our thoughts in and start breaking it down. So, back in just a second.
All right, well, you saw it there. So here's the matchups. We got the Heavenly Bodies versus the Rockers, the Gangsters versus the Bolsheviks, 3 Count versus Power and Glory, the Bushwhackers versus Rhythm and Blues, the Rougeau Brothers versus the Thrill Seekers, the Faces of Fear versus the Orient Express, the Blue Bloods versus the Eliminators, and Fire and Ice versus the Beverly Brothers.
Yeah, so there's definitely some interesting tag teams. We said there's a mix throwing in some Smoky Mountain. So you got Thrill Seekers and Heavenly Bodies. You got some ECW with the Gangsters and Eliminators. And of course, some WCW thrown in there with teams like the Blue Bloods and Fire and Ice. And there's a couple others. 3 count as well. So, Steven, your thoughts on this bracket?
It's very, very interesting. I mean, I would have loved to see some of those matchups in real, because I think, especially the Heavenly Bodies, the Rockers, that would be a match, would be amazing. I think that would be a very unique matchup. They would mesh well. I think 3 count Power and Glory would be the typical small team, big team. I think that would be interesting. Thrill Seekers versus Rougeau Brothers. Come on, that's amazing.
Battle of Canada.
Faces of Fear versus Orient Express / Bad Company. That is very interesting. Blue Bloods versus Eliminators. Eliminators don't get enough credit for who they were. And I think Fire and Ice versus the Destruction Crew would be another big man, small man tag match, which would always be interesting. So, I mean, everything is always interesting. I mean, especially the Rockers versus the Heavenly Bodies. Take out Rockers and put Rock and Roll Express. That's money. So,
and it was down in Smoky Mountain. So, Jonesy, before we get your thoughts as well on the bracket, are you surprised that none of these teams actually won the WWF tag team titles? Now, there is one exception with the Rockers, but that was not official. So that's why they're in here. But are you surprised that none of these teams won the big one?
Well, I think Rockers should have, but they didn't. Power and Glory, I think, would have been a good team to put it on them for a bit or even a while. Ones like the Bushwhackers, they didn't need the title. They were there for the comedy for the kids, and they were hugely popular. I remember seeing them live at the London Gardens, and the crowd went apeshit for them. So they didn't need the titles. Rhythm and Blues, I'm surprised they didn't hold it even for a short period of time. I think nowadays they would have. But back then, they didn't give people titles as often. So I think now most teams would have. I mean, how the Bushwhackers probably would have won it like 6-7 times now.
Yeah, tag team
the
titles.
Rougeaus, yeah. I think the top one for me is the Rougeaus should have had the belts.
Yeah, tag team titles seem to be handed out like Halloween treats now, unlike back then where you had tag teams that clearly never won before. But we're going to dive into our first matchup. I know Steven is listening as well, and it's the Heavenly Bodies, which is Dr. Tom Pritchard, who was the mainstay of the whole team. At one point was with Sweet Stan Lane, a member of the Midnight Express, and Jimmy Del Rey, the Gigolo. So interchanged times, but the Heavenly Bodies were also managed by, of course, James E. Cornette. They were Lane and Pritchard were PWI number 73 tag team in the 2003 edition when they compiled all the tag teams up until that point. And they won the Smoky Mountain tag team titles 5 times. With Pritchard and Del Rey, they won the Pennsylvania.
Shawn dropped off there.
All right, so I can pick up. So they won the
right.
Pennsylvania Championship. Pritchard and Del Rey won the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Tag Team Champions 3 times and USWA Tag Team Champions. Obviously, Jim Cornette was their manager. They were only team from 92 to 95, basically because Smoky Mountain went away. They wrestled, the only team to wrestle for WCW and WCW, or WWE and WCW's tag team champions while defending the Smoky Mountain tag team titles within 3 months of each other. They were on Super Brawl and then on SummerSlam back to back, basically. It's pretty amazing. Has Shawn come back on? Yep.
I am back. Sorry about that. I don't know why.
So we finished off the Heavenly Bodies because you were drunk.
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, you're moving really slow like a robot, dude.
Yeah, weird.
Oh my God, you're so delayed. This is great.
You want to get to the Rockers?
It's like 90s internet.
And I'll come back.
Yeah, okay, I'll pick up. That's great. So the Rockers / Midnight Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. 2-time AWA Tag Team Champs, 2-time AWA Southern Tag Team Champs, NWA Central Tag Team Champs, PWI number 33 in 2003. I forget what. Well, they won Tag Team of the Year in '89. They were a tag team from '85 to '92, and then a small brief run in 2005. They went their separate ways in '92, but they were dubbed the tag team of the 90s for a good reason. I mean, they were a fast-paced tag team, high-flying, especially when they faced Demolition, the Hart Foundation, Power and Glory. They were really not a knockoff, because that's the wrong word. They were put together to be the AWA's version of the
Rock and Roll Express.
Rock and Roll Express. But I think I prefer the Rock and Roll Express out of the two teams, but that's only because they've been tagging for 112 years. But I think if Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty could have ever got it together long term, I think they would have been up there. But all right, you go ahead, Shawn.
You can do the vote. I'll take the next one. So,
all right. Well, I'm voting for the Heavenly Bodies. I think the Bodies, even though they teamed for 3 years, I think, should have gotten a run with the tag team titles. They could have had the match with everyone. I think the Rockers were a great tag team, but they both were too small long term when they were a tag team. Like, I'm not including the 2005 because they were both past anything at that point. From 85 to 92, they were great, but they didn't have it yet. I think if they would have went past 92 for a little longer, they would have found that it as a tag team. So I'm definitely going Heavenly Bodies.
Jonesy.
I want to vote for the Rockers because they should have won the titles officially. And the Heavenly Bodies, really, the WWF didn't do enough with them. They should have done more with them. Between the two teams, I seen the Rockers a lot more than I did the Heavenly Bodies, but something that at the time, even though I didn't watch that wrestling, pretty much just WWF, I knew who Dr. Tom Pritchard was. And Jimmy Del Rey, I heard those names before. And they did more in the independents, and they were higher on the no, they weren't. I know it's tough. I'm gonna have to go with the Rockers.
So I get to be the tiebreaker, unfortunately, on this one. I love the Rockers because of the fact that they were the tag team specialists and everything that had the hype coming in that Gorilla Monsoon had. I always remember being talked about on that one, and they had great matches with everybody that they went against, but politics ended up taking them away from having that tag team title, and they won it, but then got taken away before it was official, which is a huge shame on that part. The Heavenly Bodies, yeah, they were a special attraction to be able to be brought in at the Survivor Series to go against the Rock and Roll Express because it was that big of a thing, and they had the deal with Jim Cornette and Smoky Mountain. I wish they had stayed around longer, and unfortunately, Dr. Tom became Zip of the Body Donnas, which was a good team, mind you. But I think I am going to go with the Heavenly Bodies and surprise people possibly watching and listening that the Rockers are not here, which is crazy. So I'm going to do match number 2 then, since Steven ended up covering for me on match number 1. And it's the Gangstas, which is New Jack and Mustafa Ali, or Mustafa Saeed. My apologies on the name. I'm looking down at the notes now. So they were about 505 pounds, had D'Lo Brown with them, 2-time ECW Tag Team Champions, NGWA Tag Team, and Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So we're talking about Smoky Mountain again. They were a tag team from 94 to 97, and their groundbreaking team with New Jack and Mustafa debuted in Smoky Mountain, where they had controversial comments and angered a lot of the Southern audience, and eventually had to leave, but they got picked up, obviously, by Paul Heyman and ECW, and we all know about good old New Jack, thanks to everything with mass transit, and also the Dark Side of the Ring documentary from last season. And so, yeah, they were moved to ECW in 95, where they captured tag team titles twice, and New Jack's career went crazy. After that, they're going against the Bolsheviks, which is Nikolai Volkov and Boris Zukov. Boris basically took over for Iron Sheik. He came from the AWA in that regards, and so Zukov was teamed with him, and they were managed by the one and only Slick. They were voted the worst tag team by the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Of course, this is Dave Meltzer and company's opinion, and they worked together from 87 to 99, according to this. I'm thinking 89. But Nikolai is actually Croatian and Boris is actually American. So they're really not Russians at all. And the team didn't have a good win-loss record. They were definitely jobbers to the extent. I saw them job out a lot. And one would be surprised that at a WrestleMania 6, Bolsheviks lost in like 10 seconds to the Hart Foundation, who were in their own home country and didn't get to showcase themselves. So looking at the two teams going against each other, even though Volkov has a lot of accolades by himself or with other tag teams and is a former tag team champion, the team itself, not getting my vote. The Gangsters are going to get my vote. So, Jonesy, your vote.
I'm going with the Bolsheviks, and the reason why is because they were a good-looking tag team. They had everything except better wrestling ability. So that was the problem. As soon as the bell rang, it was kind of like, chop, smash, Hulk. But I like both of them. Again, I remember standing for them when they'd sing it live at And if you look at the amount of titles that Volkov won everywhere else, it's amazing. And he did win in the WWF and tag team twice, which I totally forget about. But he's got to have held close to 20 titles. And Boris Zukov, he held probably about 8 or 9. So I think they were a great tag team if they would have done more with the wrestling ability. I think if they would have put it on them, it would have been good because they were heels. Mind you, again, I don't think they needed the belts because they were Russians. They were bad heels. So. New Jack and Mustafa Saeed, D'Lo Brown. D'Lo Brown, yay. New Jack, little unhinged. There's no way he would have been allowed to kick around WCW or WWF, so he's just disqualified. So I got to go with the Bolsheviks.
Steven, you're breaking the tie.
So the Bolsheviks, unfortunately, got too much job on them. If you can go back, if you can find, Jonesy would like it, old school Smoky Mountain with the Gangsters, it is not ECW crap. They, yes, use some weapons, but they actually could wrestle very well. Paul Heyman just let them stab people with sharp objects for fun, I think. But if you go back and watch the Gangsters versus the Rock and Roll Express, the Gangsters versus the Thrill Seekers, the Gangsters versus the Heavenly Bodies, the Gangsters versus the Dirty White Boys, the Gangsters versus so many tag teams, you would be surprised that it's the same team. Yes, New Jack still said some crazy things because they were in the South and they would say things and to get people going. But if you take the Gangsters from Smoky Mountain, put them in WCW or WWE, obviously take out some of the racial crazy things that New Jack would say, even in Smoky Mountain, he would push it right to the limit and maybe just a little over, but not too much. But I'm going the Gangsters because I think New Jack was the mouthpiece that was smaller, and Mustafa, especially if you go back and watch him in Smoky Mountain, jacked to the gills. They definitely let themselves go a lot more in ECW because they didn't have to do anything other than stab people with knives, basically,
and show up.
If you can ever find anything of the Gangsters versus especially the Rock and Roll Express, oh my God, you would see these heels, and the crowds, the Southern crowds, the Rock and Roll Express were getting beaten up. Oh my God, it was great.
Okay. So there's a recommendation for anybody who's listening and watching. Check out some old school Gangsters prior to ECW. And we're going to go on to match number 3, Jonesy. It is a 3 count against Power and Glory.
Yes, we have the lovable 3 count from WCW, Shane Helms, Shannon Moore, Evan Courageous, and for a little bit, Tank Abbott. 3 count consisted of 3 lightweight wrestlers who portrayed a boy band that not only could dance real shitty on a green dot, but they could actually wrestle so well that the stupid gimmick was actually, I found, easier to take. And the boy band craze was really at its peak then. So especially the matches that they had with Jimmy Wang and all them guys. Of course, I can't remember these names, but that one team that they had the ladder matches with in WCW, very entertaining team. And they were together, though, only for about a year and a half. Powering Glory, Hercules at 6'1" and Paul Roma at 5'11". Total was 519 pounds. Their manager was Slick, and their team history, they only lasted for, again, about a year to 2 years at most. Mid-carders, Hercules and Paul Roma were course heels aligned with Slick and called the duo Power and Glory. During the year they were a duo. They beat the Rockers at SummerSlam, battled the Hart Foundation, and lost in 59 seconds to the Legion of Doom at WrestleMania 7. I like both teams, but I think Hercules and Roma, they were an entertaining team. They jobbed out too many times, but they were an entertaining team, and their finisher was kind of ahead of its time in WWF as far as that. They were the first ones that I recall doing that move. So I got to go with Hercules and Paul Roma.
Oh, wow, that kind of surprised me with what you were saying. So I love Power and Glory. Their finisher with the suplex and splash was really unique because usually it was seeing things like demolition, decapitation, or even the LOD doing the whatever they were called. I think they were decapitation as well, but or even the Heart Foundation with the heart attack. It was always somebody holding and somebody hitting, but this was a suplex and then somebody coming from the other side. Really nice. I think FTR uses that now. But yeah, unfortunately, too many jobbing. Their victory over the Rockers only at SummerSlam came because Shawn Michaels was injured and they took a chain to his knee to make it look like they did the destruction, and then they just had their way with Marty Jannetty. And we're looking at Paul Roma, unfortunately, one of the jokes of the Four Horsemen legacy, if you look at it, and he was eventually pretty Paul Roma with Mr. Wonderful, but this tag team jobbed out too much, had a really great look. They were on the surviving team of the Survivor Series, and where a whole team moved on with the Warlord and Rick Martel that one year. But 3 count, just really entertaining. And you pointed out their time with the Young Dragons and the 6-man tags, and then when they kicked each a member to the curb, the 3 ways that they had on that, can't go wrong. I'm going with 3 count. Steven, breaking the tie.
I love 3 count, but give me some Power and Glory. Way ahead of their time. Way ahead of their time. If the WWE could have seen what they had in Power and Glory, they had teams that would have matched up wonderful. Not so much the Road Warriors, because the Road Warriors were the Road Warriors, but if you had the Hart Foundation, you had the Rockers, you ended up having, I think, the Brainbusters come in when they were still a team. You had teams that you could have had them work with, and it would have been amazing. But you ended up having them disband way too quick. So I love 3 count, but I think, unfortunately, they were all too small to win the big one. They, even when they got Tank Abbott, it was too late for them. They needed one member who could have been the muscle, especially in. So I'm going Power and Glory because that's a team that should have had definitely a run with the titles. And yeah, pretty Paul Roma being a horseman, that wasn't a good idea. But Power and Glory itself, I could watch them all day.
Yeah, Power and Glory was way better than what Roma was doing, even with Jimmy Powers at the Young Stallions. Even though they did win the first Survivor Series with the Killer Bees. But
honestly, though, Paul Roma gets a bad rap compared to, yes, because he was put in the Horsemen. You never put him in the Horsemen. He doesn't get that bad of a rap.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so we're going to move on to matchup number 4, and it's the Bushwhackers against Rhythm and Blues. We saw this leading up basically to WrestleMania 6 and everything that happened with them there. But we got the Bushwhackers. They Luke Miller and Butch Williams, or Butch Miller and Luke Williams, should I say? And they were tag team champions all over the place. They started off as Kiwis. They were so many different, the Sheep Herders, and definitely a bloodthirsty, hardcore sort of tag team until they came to WWE, and you saw the dressing in lingerie, looking for a gift for their mom, and having food fights and all this cartoony stuff that they became when they were the Bushwhackers, and they were there basically for the kids. Uh, I believe I heard on one of the podcasts that Conrad Thompson does that they didn't think that Vince McMahon could get them over in that sort of gimmick and not have to do all the blood and guts and gore that they were doing as the sheep herders. Um, they were number 71 in the PWA list. The worst tag team from Dave Meltzer, uh, 92 and 94. Worst worked match in 93. But of course, that was that whole doink gimmick with Men on a Mission as well, and everybody dressed as doinks. The tag team history goes from 1966 to 2001. Uh, and in WWE, we saw them feuding a lot with the Beverly Brothers and the Rougeau brothers, a couple times with the Nasty Boys and Natural Disasters, but a lot with the Beverlys and Rougeaus with their combination. They even had Jameson with them at one point, a comedian that dressed up like a nerd, and they took him under his wing. And they got WWE Hall of Fame, which got to actually Butch Miller out because they hadn't been together for a long time due to Butch's medical condition. I think they're still looking to do something in the near future once COVID's done, but Luke has been all over the place, still active, getting out in public and still occasionally doing some wrestling, even at his age. But they're going against Rhythm and Blues, and it's two former Intercontinental champions, both managed by Jimmy the Mouth of the South Hart, active basically from 88 to 91. They weren't officially Rhythm and Blues at WrestleMania 5 when they took on the Hart Foundation, but then became Rhythm and Blues when Greg the Hammer Valentine dyed his hair, put on the rhinestone jackets and the big glasses, and started doing almost like the fat old Elvis, or as I think Bobby Heenan kept on calling him, Boxcar. And they had their Hunka Hunka Hunky Love debut and drove down in DDP's Cadillac. And it's a very big surprise that two former Intercontinental champions, former tag team champion in the case of Valentine, never made it to being tag team champions. They had everything going for them, I'd say. Longevity wise, and I think Jonesy pointed out earlier that they probably didn't need it, but I'm going to go with the Bushwhackers. If they had even turned uh, near the end of their WWE run and been the sheep herders again, wow. If they'd been able to bring in the Attitude Era with that, I could have seen them with titles around their waist. So I'm going to go with the Bushwhackers. Steven.
The sheep herders I seen in NWA, and they were pure-blooded violence. Bushwhackers, you would have never put the two teams that they were the same. I actually am going to go for Rhythm Blues. I think as much as Honky didn't have to do anything. He could have wrestled, and Greg the Hammer could wrestle. I think WWE had some tag teams that they could have done things with that they didn't for whatever reason. So I'm definitely going Rhythm and Blues. I think they had something, and I'm sad that some of these teams didn't get a run because I think they should have.
Oh, it seems to be the theme of this first round. We need another tiebreaker. Jonesy.
Bushwhackers, they were great for kids and all that. They were very entertaining. But personally, as the Bushwhackers, their matches were boring as shit. It was Snorville. I hated when the Bushwhackers were on. The entrance, fine. You want to show that and everything, that's fine. But I don't want to see a match.
And hey, Ray Rougeau got groped by one of them.
Oh, and the Bushwhackers, I seen them the main event against Well Done at the London Gardens, and it wasn't that great. Rhythm and Blues, I think the issue with Rhythm and Blues is Honky was tired by then as far as his character. He needed to do something more with it, change it up or something. And Greg the Hammer, I didn't like the fact that he dyed his hair and he was all of a sudden now a music guy. Fine, dye your hair, but why did he have to? Like, I don't know. I didn't like some of it, but I much rather watch their matches. And if they packaged them better, then I think absolutely they could have held the titles even for a short while, and then they should have feuded because then Honky could have started bitching at Jimmy that Greg Valentine was thinking he was too much of Elvis, that he was starting to get the spotlight or some shit like that. I think they would have had a fantastic feud.
Yeah, there was some definitely behind the
I'm
scenes
going
stuff.
with Rhythm and Blues.
So another heel team advances. I'm sensing a little bit of a theme here. So we'll go on to the next one, which is the Rougeau brothers against the Thrill Seekers, a battle of Canada, East versus West.
So I have no information on the Rougeau brothers because did Jonesy just skip that team as part of?
I must have or something. I don't.
That's fine. The Rougeau brothers. And then you have the Thrill Seekers, Landstorm, Chris Jericho, down in Smoky Mountain in 1990. They only teamed in Smoky Mountain for a year because Jericho at the Super Bowl of Wrestling, one of Smoky Mountain's big shows, he was going over a spot in the ring before the show and he broke his arm. So it ended their push and their run. They had amazing matches against the Heavenly Bodies, the Gangstas, the Stud Stable, the Dirty White Boys. They also, after they left Smoky Mountain, they'd compete in Calgary, Japan, using the name Sudden Impact. They actually weren't a tag team to get down in Smoky Mountain. Landstorm sent Jim Cornette a tape with him actually wrestling Chris Jericho, and Jim Cornette decided, if I want them, I want to put them together because that's how I can make their money. And unfortunately, if Jericho wouldn't have done something dumb, shocking story of his career, they would have had a much longer run. So I'm going the Rougeau brothers.
Jonesy.
I'm going with the Rougeaus as well. They were actually real brothers. They were around for they debuted in the late 70s and disbanded in 90. Total of 470 pounds. I thought they were a pretty good team. They were one of the more entertaining teams. They were bad, but they were goofy, so it wasn't like, super hate for them. It was TV production hate. the Thrill Seekers. Honestly, I've heard of them, but I never seen them actually any of their matches as a tag team. So I got to go with Rougeos only because they were around for a long time, especially when I was watching wrestling very heavy. They were a team that I couldn't believe they didn't have one. They didn't have a belt.
Did you guys? Was it just mine that disappeared
Just
in the middle
you.
of Jonesy talking?
Yeah, just you for some reason.
Okay, cool. Okay.
We're good. So yeah, gotta love technical difficulties. Hey, and I'm not even on Rogers. Not plug in for them.
Huh.
Neither am I.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, Rougeos are definitely going to move on. I'm going to give them the nod as well. Rougeau brothers, probably Jacques was their worst enemy as far as probably wanting a push and stuff like that. And hey, they've moved from Montreal to Memphis and waving their American flags because they're all American boys and being with Jimmy Hart. I remember that whole turn because they were fan favorites, but really not going anywhere. And then got the Hart Foundation contracts when the Hart Foundation left Jimmy Hart, and they were getting the Hart's money and stuff like that. So unfortunately, they got stuck in a long-term feud with the Bushwhackers, but yeah, so did the Beverly Brothers. So Rougeos are going to move on. And that brings us to our next matchup, the Faces of Fear versus the Orient Express. Jonesy.
No, this is for me. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
Okay, so the Faces of Fear. I was actually thinking Haku. He had an excellent match in WCW against Rick Steiner on. I'm not sure if it was Saturday night. It was one of the lower tier programs, and they had one hell of a great match. Anyways, so the Faces of Fear, Haku was 6'1", or is 6'1", sorry. Barbarian 6'2", and the total was 608 pounds of absolute insanity. The titles, NCWA in the mid 2015, that is the only titles they actually got. Somewhat surprisingly, I think they didn't need belts. If they had them, I think it would have been great because they were a huge team. You could believe they could beat the Road Warriors and all the big teams at the time. Do anything I missed here? So they began as a team in '91 as members of the Heenan family, taking on the Rockers at WrestleMania 7. The team continued in New Japan and later reassembled in WCW around '96 as Jimmy Hart managed the Faces of Fear. They both currently still do indie shows, as far as we know. Because, of course, right now wrestling is still a little bit on hiatus in certain parts of the world. And they're going against the Orient Express Bad Company. If this was a real match, we all know who would win. I'd much rather watch a Orient Express match. However, even if they are around today, I can't see them as champions. They were great, but they didn't look like a team that could hold a belt for very long. They were very, very small, but talented. AWA, they held the titles in AWA, AWA World, and CW in AWA International. Team history from 90 to 94 and again in 2006 and 2008 without Diamond. Whether as the original duo of Tanaka or Sato, or later teaming of Tanaka and Kato, of course, Paul Diamond. The Orient Express were a part of the WWF between 90 and 94, managed by Mr. Fuji. The team battled the Legion of Doom, Duggan and Volkov, and even defeated the Rockers at WrestleMania 6. I got to go with the Faces of Fear. I just see them being able to carry the belts a lot better in money wise, people wanting to buy tickets. You don't need tickets to, you don't need belts to enhance how great the Orient Express was.
Yeah, I am going to go the opposite way because some of the stuff I first started watching, aside from WWF, was the AWA, and I saw Sato and Tanaka work together, and of course, Bad Company with Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka with DDP, and when they made it to WWF, I liked the combination of Sato and Tanaka, but it was even better when Sato left and Diamond took over and put on the hood to be Japanese and be part of that team. If I'm looking at the between not just what they did, but also what I want to see, I'd rather see Rockers and Orient Express from the Royal Rumble than Rockers and Faces of Fear at WrestleMania. So I liked the team of Orient Express more than the Faces of Fear. Faces of Fear seemed a little directionless and goofy in a way in the presentation in WCW. So that kind of loses them some points. Steven, another tiebreaker.
Oh, it's Faces of Fear. You have Hakun the Barbarian. You had money. You could have the sympathetic baby faces against the Faces of Fear. And unfortunately, when they really gelled as a tag team in WCW, it was too late because they had gone NWO, and that was. But if you can imagine the Faces of Fear, early '90s, WWF taking on the Rockers, the Hearts, that's money. You have the big, bad, scary, mean tag team taking on the good guys, and the good guys have to try to win against the big, scary, mean Faces of Fear. So it's the Faces of Fear.
Especially if Haku Ming had the big frizzy hair in the WWF days. Holy shit.
Well, just imagine the Faces of Fear as the tag team WWF tag team champions and their opponents, the Rockers. The Rockers, you build up a whole story of the Rockers have to overcome these giants to win the titles, or the Hearts, the Killer Bees, like pick and choose.
There we go. So Face of Fear are moving on, and that takes us to our next matchup, which is the Blue Bloods versus the Eliminators. Blue Bloods started in WCW and did cross over to WD, but Lord Steven Regal was the mainstay for both organizations in that regards. Earl Robert Eaton, who people remember from the Midnight Express, became British all of a sudden and teamed with Lord Steven Regal. Really great tag team there. They even had Squire David Taylor there. Taylor and Regal would be the team in WWE later on in 06 and 7. But from 95 to 2000, it was the mixture of the three. They had Jeeves as their manager or valet, and that was Bill Dundee from USWA. The only member to hold WCW gold was Regal, who was a multi-time tag team, TV title champion at the time. They most of the time they were on WCW Saturday Night and very low on the cards for the pay-per-views and different shows. Unfortunately, I don't think they got many tag team title opportunities, and if they did, obviously they lost because they're in this list and we're not there. I believe before he went to WWE, Jean-Paul Levesque was supposed to be the tag team partner of Lord Steven Regal, and that didn't happen because Paul Levesque ended up going to WWF and starting Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and that's where they put in Earl Robert Eaton, a great technician in that regards. They're
I have to
taking.
correct you for a second, Shawn.
Oh,
Bobby Eaton did win WCW Tag Team Gold and TV Champion.
oh, well, yeah, he held titles elsewhere. But as a tag team, yeah, they didn't do that. But yes, Eaton did have their titles. Just with the note here, that was need correct. They're going against the Eliminators, Perry Saturn and John Kronos. Almost 500 pounds from ECW, three-time ECW Tag Team Champions, and one-time USWA Tag Team Champion. Number 89 in the PWI 300 best tag team 2003 tag team edition, and they worked together from 93 to 97. They formed in USWA in 93 and gained attention when they joined ECW in 95. During the run in ECW, they would hold the titles three times and fought teams like the Pitbulls, Public Enemy, and many other teams. They were both bouncers from Boston, and definitely in Saturn's case, he was, I believe, military before getting into wrestling. Of course, the team broke up, and Perry ended up in WCW and eventually WWF with a mop. God help us. And God only knows how his mental stability is right now. I heard he's not so good. Looking at these two teams, though, I know earlier Steven said that the Eliminators get a bad rep in a way because they're not known as much. But for that same reason, I am going to go with the Blue Bloods because I actually enjoyed the Blue Bloods as a tag team in WCW. So, Steven, you can take over with.
Blue Bloods. Oh, the Blue Bloods. That was a tag team that was great. I loved watching them. Bobby Eaton as this fake Englishman, it was great. You could pretty much tag Bobby Eaton with anyone, and it would be a great tag team. So Bobby Eaton. And
yeah, there's certain guys in wrestling that like Bobby Eaton, Arn Anderson, and a Billy Gunn, who seem to be excel as tag teams. Even Buff Bagwell. You don't want to see him as singles, but as tag, unbeatable. Jonesy.
I would have gone with Perry and Kronos mostly because I didn't think much of the Blue Bloods. Maybe it's just the way that they sold them on TV. It was nap time when they came on. For me, I liked Steven Regal as far as in the ring, wrestling, but I don't know. To me, they weren't an exciting tag team. They were more of a joke. And again, I think it's similar to what WCW did with the Faces of Fear. They kind of turned them into a cartoon version, and I don't know. I wasn't a fan of theirs.
Yeah, no problem. So that moves the Blue Bloods on to the next round, and it makes our next and final round of the first Fire and Ice against the Beverly Brothers. Steven.
well, speaking of joke tag teams, the Fire and Ice, Ice Train, M.I. Smooth, and Scott Norton. They were managed for a short, brief time by Teddy Long. Basically, they were in a feud, and then they all of a sudden were a tag team. They won. They were only a team for 1996, and basically they kind of disappeared. They had a feud with the Steiners. They lost to the Rock and Roll Express, and they weren't really two big guys, but Scott Norton definitely had better things to do. They're taking on the Destruction Crew / Beverly Brothers. Wayne Bloom and Mike Enos won AWA Tag Team Champions, AWA tournament in 1989. They were managed by Jimmy Valiant in AWA, Ole Anderson in WCW as M Wrecking Crew 2, Coach John Tolis in the WWF. They teamed basically in 89 and then 98. They were the Destruction Crew was big in AWA, not so much in WWE as the Beverly Brothers. In WCW, they were the Minnesota Wrecking Crew 2. I'm going to go with the Destruction Crew, Beverly Brothers. I just found them. If I had to sit down and watch a match between Beverly Brothers, Destruction Crew versus Fire and Ice, I'm picking them. So I'll be right back.
All right. I got to agree, and I'd go with the Beverly Brothers. Fire and Ice, they were actually together for only about 3 months as they kind of got together after Slamboree, which was in May. And then I'm lost where I was here. But anyways, then they broke up at Hog Wild, there it is, which was like in August. So they weren't together for too long.
Yeah, Norton had a lot of different tag teams. I actually liked Ice Train. When I first saw him, I thought it was pretty cool. Not a really big fan of Norton, but as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I was watching, other than WWF, when I first started watching, was the AWA because I was able to first see it through Scramble Vision here in Canada, and then when it became clear, seeing some of the AWA shows from the Showboat and the Team Challenge series and everything going on with that, I was a fan of the Destruction Crew. Just really didn't get the Mike Enos, the Bo and Blake Beverly side of them. And then unfortunately, when Wayne Bloom retired, Enos became a jobber essentially in WCW. He will be remembered, though, as one of the guys in the ring when Scott Hall came down and broke up everything to introduce himself in WCW again. But yeah, I'm going Beverly Brothers as well on that. So they are moving on, and we'll bring up our bracket as long as everything is working. It's been one of those crazy episodes, guys, popping in and out. But here is the bracket with the winners.
Or not. And I have my paper to.
It is coming up. I'll run it down. I got the.
This is what happens when we take. Okay, there we go. So we had the Heavenly Bodies beat the Rockers 2-1. The Gangsters beat the Bolsheviks 2-1. Power and Glory beat 3-count 2-1. Rhythm Blues beat the Bushwhackers 2-1. Rougeau Brothers beat the Thrill Seekers 3-0. Face of Fear beat Orient Express 2-1. Blue Bloods beat Eliminators 2-1. Beverly Brothers beat Fire and Ice 3-0. Setting up our second round of Heavenly Bodies versus the Gangsters. If you can find that on YouTube from Smoky Mountain, I'd highly recommend it. Power and Glory versus Rhythm and Blues. Rougeau Brothers versus Faces of Fear, which you probably can find somewhere from WCW. And the Blue Bloods versus the Beverly Brothers.
Yeah, so any surprises of people being eliminated? I know I was surprised that the Rockers did not advance, but I don't know how much further they would have actually gotten either way. Guys?
I didn't expect the Heavenly Bodies. I expected my vote to be the only vote for the Heavenly Bodies because most people only know them from their very, 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 very brief run in WWE, where obviously I've watched a lot of Smoky Mountain. so I know how great of a tag team they are. So
And
that was
Jonesy,
my
any
surprise.
surprises for you?
Nothing shocking. Most of these teams were B teams, so the shocks probably will be in this round.
There we go. All right, you get to start off with the Heavenly Bodies against the Gangstas.
I do, and I have no idea which team to kind of go for here. I mean, I've seen all the rest, all of them, but I did not see the Gangsters actually ever team up. I didn't see any of those matches.
We lost Shawn again.
Oh, yikes!
So I'll give you a brief little history lessons from Smoky Mountain since we need to have a little bit of time.
Yay! History time.
So Stan Lane, obviously, him and Jim Cornette went over. That's when they started the Heavenly Bodies with Dr. Tom Pritchard. Stan Lane then retired, and they needed a new Heavenly Body. So that was Jimmy Del Rey, and that's when they built him, in Smoky Mountain at least, as his cousin, the Gigolo, Jimmy Del Rey. The Gangstas, very much not so violent. They actually could wrestle. They, at one point, were also managed by Jim Cornette very, very briefly in a feud. They were kind of a hired gun to take on the Rock and Roll Express. But, yeah. One was a high-end team and one middle of the road team.
Okay, so I obviously dropped out again and didn't catch your votes. What were they?
I haven't voted yet. He was giving me a history lesson on the two teams. I'm going to have to go with the Gangsters, and my reason for that is, even though New Jack and WWF would be hilarious, I think those two would be more likely to win and be given a push than the Heavenly Bodies, even though I loved the name Jimmy Del Rey, the Gigolo.
And to know that he became a leprechaun in WCW, crazy. But I am going to go with the Heavenly Bodies, allowing Steven to be the tiebreaker on this because I really didn't see the Gangsters. You say all the matches that we need to look back on, and definitely going to look those up. But I did see the Heavenly Bodies, so that's why I'm going with them.
Heavenly Bodies, they would be the team that would a promotion could put their, like WCW or WWE could put their tag team titles on and know they're going to get a really good match out of, and the Heavenly Bodies could wrestle anyone, where the Gangsters could wrestle anyone, but they would need someone to lead them through a match that would be quality. So definitely going the Heavenly Bodies.
Yeah, and you got Dr. Tom, who is now a trainer officially. Like he was training forever, mind you, but him and Glenn Jacobs have their own training school now down in.
Definitely someone who, if they've been trained by Dr. Tom, they've got the basics and they can go properly.
Okay, so now we have Power and Glory against Rhythm and Blues. Yeah. What's left to say about this? Like, you got former Intercontinental champions and guys that were also had a lot of potential that was squandered when you look at Power and Glory. I think having Rhythm and Blues as tag team champions would have been nice to have like a chicken shit heel team holding the titles. Power and Glory, you got guys who'd be almost in a way the heel version of the Hart Foundation at that time, because you got one guy who's the muscle and one guy who's the technician. looking at them, I'm going to go with Rhythm and Blues to advance. Steven.
Oh, Power and Glory. Unfortunately, at that time, Honky was not at his peak anymore. He was very much on the quick downside. Greg the Hammer still had some value there, but he wasn't the Hammer, really. Rhythm and Blue, or Power and Glory, if anyone could have ever seen the potential and give them a real shot, I think Power and Glory with Slick. And if you didn't have Slick, put, say, like a Bobby the Brain Heenan or a more high up there manager, would have been great.
So, Jonesy, you get to break this tie again.
What era are these guys wrestling in? The era that they did, or like now, before? Because my problem is I want to vote Honky and Greg Hammer because to me, they would be easier to sell to the crowd. They have a huge background. Both of them have good gimmicks. Where Hercules and Paul Roma really didn't have a gimmick until he went to WCW as Pretty Paul Roma. And then Hercules, well, he was just the big strong guy, but he didn't really play the part of, say, Hercules. So I got to go with Rhythm and Blues on this. It's simply because I think they're more believable as a tag team champions from the point of telling a story and history. And I think more people would want to see Honky and the Greg the Hammer than Hercules and Paul Roma, even though I'd rather see Hercules and Paul Roma. I think they do the better match. So, but anyways, that's why I'm going with Honky and Greg.
Okay, well, Rhythm and Blues moves on to face the Heavenly Bodies in the next round. But, Steven, we're talking about this matchup, which is the Rougeau brothers against the Faces of Fear.
Oh, Faces of Fear. That was a team that they are what you would want in a heel tag team champion. Big, menacing. You have so many options with them. Rougeau brothers, chicken sheet heels, yes, but you definitely had something with Faces of Fear. I just wish that they would have been able to show what they had.
Okay, so Jonesy.
I think it would have been great if the Rougeaus were allowed to, say, win the titles in their home turf, like in Montreal, Quebec, somewhere in there. Montreal, Quebec, same place. You know what I mean? And then flip off the crowd after they won it, become even bigger heels. That's the only way I think they would have been able to be sold. They weren't serious enough with Jimmy Hart and the flag waving and all that, but they were a great tag team. But yeah, I got to go with the Faces of Fear.
Okay, that's going to be a clean sweep for the Faces of Fear because your scenario, Jonesy, of what you'd love to see the Rougeaus do definitely was not going to happen. That's one of the reasons why Jacques Rougeau has a very bad relationship with WWE anymore. It was basically they needed to win no matter what whenever they were in Quebec. And that's why also PCO had issues with the Click because of that same mentality that they could not lose in front of their hometown. Another reason why Bret Hart didn't want to lose in front of everybody at Survivor Series. It's just a weird mentality for losing in Montreal.
I don't know. For me, I feel like if I was a wrestler, I'd want to lose in my hometown. At least that'd be me. I'd want to lose in my hometown.
Well, that's what WWE tries to have you do.
And then I'd blame it on the town. I lost because I'm here. This is why I left. No.
And our final match of the second round, Jonesy Blue Bloods versus the Beverly Brothers.
Blue Bloods and the Beverly Brothers. Oh, ugh. I have to go. I'll go with the Blue Bloods. Because again, I liked Lord Steven Regal, especially when he first came in to the WCW. I wasn't a fan of that particular tag team, but I only got to see the Beverly Brothers. I didn't get to see them as the Destruction Crew. And then they were in WCW. I can't remember what name they were under. Was that the Destruction Crew they were under?
No, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew too.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, they didn't have any, they looked good, but they didn't have whatever they were looking for to give them belts in the WWF or WCW. So I got to go with the Blue Bloods.
Yeah, I am going to advance the Blue Bloods also to the semifinals. I'm a fan of the Beverly Brothers, but Blue Bloods, I think, were a better unit. I do like those technical heels as well, like the Blue Bloods were. So they're moving on. Is it a clean sweep, though, Stephen?
Clean sweep. Give me the Blue Bloods. I can watch Bobby Eaton wrestle a fucking broomstick, and it would be a great match.
There we go. So moving on with a 3-0 victory. And we'll see if we can share the screen again. And if not, well, we'll just run down the winners of the second round. What's up the visual? Who's up there? It's there we go.
So we had Heavenly Bodies beat the Gangsters 2-1. Rhythm and Blues beat Power and Glory 2-1. Face of Fear beat the Rougeau Brothers 3-0. And Blue Bloods beat the Beverly Brothers 3-0, setting up semifinals of Heavenly Body versus Rhythm and Blues. Face of Fear versus the Blue Bloods. I'm kind of disappointed in Power and Glory because I thought I prefer to watch Power and Glory over Rhythm and Blues. But
yeah, I could have gone either
understand.
way, and that's why I did vote the Rhythm and Blues because of just the sort of, as I said, chicken shit to heel. But you know, a heel version of the Heart Foundation would have been great with the Power and Glory. But we'll see where we move on. Jonesy, any thoughts on the second round?
Nope, no thoughts. None.
Okay. 0. There we go. That was simple. Let's go on to round number 3 with the Heavenly Bodies versus Rhythm and Blues. We've talked about these two teams.
yeah, it's you.
It's me. Yeah.
No, it's you. You're right.
Anyways, we've talked about these two teams for a bit over the last hour. And Heavenly Bodies, I think, were a more cohesive team than Rhythm and Blues. Stephen pointed out that Honky and Greg were on the downslide of their careers and being put together. So I'm going to go with Heavenly Bodies over Rhythm and Blues. Stephen.
Oh, it's Heavenly Bodies. I know Jonesy, if Jonesy would love them. If you can ever find their matches on, unfortunately WWE doesn't have a lot of Smoky Mountain on the network, which is a shame. You can find some of the shows on the internet, on YouTube and stuff. You would absolutely love the Heavenly Bodies. So I'm going the Bodies.
From what I've seen, I'm going with Rhythm and Blues, and it's still only because I think they're better, an easier sell than what Tom Pritchard and Jimmy Del Rey had when they were in the short time in WWE. And also because they've already passed through, I'm giving it to Rhythm and Blues because I think they were a good tag team, but yes, Honky was though I don't know if he was ever really that good. I think he was good at playing a character in selling, but as far as wrestling abilities, yeah. But I got to go with him.
Okay, so there we go. Heavenly Bodies move on, and our other semifinal, Steven. Fist of Fear versus Blue Bloods.
I'm going Face of Fear. I love the Blue Bloods, but I think the big giant ass tag team of Haku and the Barbarian could sell forever. The Blue Bloods, unless you really knew who they were and some of what they could be, people wouldn't probably understand as much. So definitely Face of Fear.
I think it would be an interesting match. But the Faces of Fear is the one I vote for.
And so that will be a clean sweep with the Face of Fear moving on to face the Heavenly Bodies in the final round. And there we go. We don't need to bring up the bracket. We'll just dive into our finals with Face of Fear and Heavenly Bodies. Jonesy.
Again, I'm going to go with the Faces of Fear on this. I did see them both, but I seen more Haku and Barbarian. They're monsters. They should have been built more as monsters. And it's too bad they never held the big title.
Yeah, I would agree with on that one. It's a shame that they didn't. I think we've said that they got together a little bit too late in their career, and with all the NWO stuff and the craziness going on there, if they'd been a team longer in WWE during that time, they might have gotten bigger. I'm going to go with Heavenly Bodies and making Steven have to give us our break. So before we get a copyright issue, we are going to go with, obviously that was the theme starting of the Heavenly Bodies.
That was their bad theme from WWE. Their best theme is an actual song, because Jim Cornette would just be like, I like that song for that person, and not pay royalties, which is hilarious. But the Bodies, I love Faces of Fear, but you only could do so much with the Faces of Fear. The Bodies could be chicken shit heels, and with Jim Cornette in their corner, it would be money. You'd be printing money. So
Jim Cornette in one corner, Jimmy Hart in the other.
Oh, it would be insanity, but I would definitely be going the Bodies.
Thanks a lot, guys. I put a lot of money on this and I lost.
Yeah, well, shouldn't put money. Should always know. Bet on the house.
That's right. Well, Shawn, I'm sure we'll be back shortly.
Did we lose him again? Well, yes. As Shawn's internet must be provided by that company that has a red logo, because it's shitty tonight.
No, in this case, it is definitely the fact that my computer is loaded up with photos for 2 weeks of fantasy. I mean, for This Week in History, which is going to be on tomorrow. We're doing one night. I did uploaded 2 weeks worth, and that's been too much, I think, for my computer to handle today.
It's gonna rough.
We'll go quickly over some things that we want to promote. So I'm going to start with, for me, Sluggin featuring this week is Warhead. Go back and read the last few. It had Wavemaker Kyle Boone, I don't remember last week. The last 2 weeks have been a blur for me. I know Kyle Boone. I think Justin Sane.
The Bubblegum Princess.
Yeah, the Bubblegum Princess. Alexia Nicole.
Yes.
This week is Warhead. So that's at cwnonline.ca. Yeah, that's what I have to promote.
Jonesy.
Of course, this week in wrestling history, we're finally through all the WrestleManias, so we'll have just WrestleMania on there, and as well, Cool Bets. I just want to welcome them to the family, and I was looking on their site, and you can play some interesting games, the blackjack, and definitely the poker. I'm going to be looking at playing that.
Yeah, it's
And
good that
speaking
you.
of that, we should have the special code for our followers in the next. I've been told the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe they're creating. I have to talk to Shawn offline about what our special promo code we want to be.
Yep, and so I'm thankful that Jonesy brought that up because I have right here the championship belt with Coolbet's logo on it, our podcast logo, and of course, it's part of the Scumbags Predictions League. We already did WrestleMania 2 weeks ago, and decent showing for that. There's still time for people to join, whether you're part of the free side of things or the pro side, where you get a chance at that championship title provided to us by Cool Bets. Play cool, bet responsibly, and we're going to be able to provide that belt at the end of the season, which is going to be next year, just before WrestleMania. Somebody will be awarded that title, and we cover WWE, NXT, NXT UK, AEW, and Impact Wrestling events, and be on the lookout for a preview of this weekend's Impact Wrestling Rebellion pay-per-view, which is happening on Sunday. And you can get your predictions in and get closer to winning that title. So be on the lookout for that coming up this weekend with a preview of the matches that are going to be taking place. Plus, later on tomorrow night, we are going to do Scumbags Wrestling episode number 150, and we'll look at news, get Steven's take on a couple of things we've missed over the last couple of weeks with WrestleMania Hall of Fame, the releases, plus, as I said, previewing Impact Rebellion. So that is everything from us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you all later.